The police are identifying the shooter as a trans woman. It would actually be a trans man. So there's sort of a misidentification there, but this is all new. I'm just wondering, the identity of being a transgender person and also being identified as a woman, does this pose any sort of difference or difficulty for police, because it's not typically a woman, regardless of how they're identifying? So there are a couple of things here that are different and that we're going to have to talk about and delve into.
To the news about the mass shooting that occurred in Nashville, Tennessee, in which you had an individual who happens to identify as transgender going inside of a Christian elementary school and shooting and killing kids and adults. Now, you would think that in the sane world, right, the reaction from the mainstream liberal media would focus on Christians, right, and the attack on Christians and why this happened, right? Is this a hate crime? Does this have something to do with maybe hatred towards Christians or Christianity, right? This is what they normally do, okay, in any other scenario where a so-called minority group is attacked, right? But no, what they're actually doing, and I honestly couldn't believe this clip when I saw it, you have a local news media outlet that is sounding the alarm about the supposed threat to the transgender community in response to this mass shooting rather than the Christian community. Take a look.
Hale, who police say identifies as transgender. That news has already prompted some attacks against the trans community. KPRC2's Bryce Newberry picks up our coverage from here.
Demonstrators at the Texas state capitol Monday fighting against anti-trans bills being considered by state lawmakers as news broke that the Nashville school shooter identifies as transgender.
It doesn't excuse anything that happened. I am concerned about how opposition and people who are anti-trans will try to spin this.
Concern about tweets like this from GOP Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, writing, "How much hormones like testosterone and medications for mental illness was the transgender Nashville school shooter taking? Everyone can stop blaming guns now."
The comparison of they did it because they're trans is very unfair to trans people.
Andrea Segovia from the transgender trans community to be in the spotlight, and at least 2 months remaining of the legislative session. Advocates worry the attacks aren't over.
You can't say that because one person did something that's a characteristic or reason to be cruel to trans people.
Of the reason for this shooting, the use of violence is reprehensible, and we renew our call for common sense gun safety legislation. While facts about the Nashville shooting are still surfacing, the Human Rights Campaign says trans people are much more likely to be victims of violence rather than perpetrators, writing in a statement, regardless.
He's a damn good white man. He's a good guy, I met him. You did this tweet, right? Yeah. The Colorado Springs shooter identified as non-binary. Facts. The Denver shooter identified as trans. Facts. The Aberdeen shooter identified as trans. Facts. The Nashville shooter identified as trans. More facts. One thing is very clear, the modern trans movement is radicalizing activists into terrorists. That's a bit of a push. Prevalence of shootings by transgender individuals to highlight mental health concerns. Others pointed out that there had already been more than 100 mass shooters in 2023 alone. That's missing context. Therefore, the number of mass shootings perpetrated by transgender individuals mounted to a fraction of the total number in the U.S. over the past 5 years. That's missing context. It's misinformation. You leave Gun Violence Archive. There's been 131 mass shootings this year, and there were 647 in 2022. In total, there has been 2,861 mass shootings in the U.S. since 2018. Some have had more than one perpetrator. So I understand that argument, but I don't hear this argument when the guy shut up Walmart. Yeah. I didn't hear this argument whenever you see a white straight male do something heinous like this. Right. This trans person. You know why? Because trans is a protected class in this country. They the most protected class in this country.
And they shouldn't be.
So, but you're going to make this argument, lump them in with the gang violence because she's a trans racist? Because we know that was a hate crime. She hates Christians. That's why she targeted that school. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
and Zelensky's working with the Azovs. Zelensky's a Jew and the Azovs are Nazis. And like Guillaume Schwartz, later on George Soros, collaborated with the Nazis as a Jew. I mean, it's I see a pattern.
Says we need more than visibility. Trans Day of Vengeance.
More.
Yeah, stop trans genocide. Apparently there's a genocide of trannies going on. April 1st, April Fool's Day, will now officially be the Trach Ach Ich Uch it was. But the whole tranny thing and the multiple sexes is because they believe that that is. What would you do if you woke up next to this? What would you do if you woke up and that was
Look at that
scary?
nasty thing.
This is just scary.
These are the women today in the United States.
Look at how thin she is.
Then, really, I thought she was.
Nashville school shooter identifies as transgender.
It doesn't excuse anything that happened. I am concerned about how opposition and people who are anti-trans will try to spin this.
Concern about tweets like this from GOP Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, writing, "How much hormones like testosterone and medications for mental illness was the transgender Nashville school shooter taking? Everyone can stop blaming guns now."
The comparison of they did it because they're trans is very unfair to trans people.
Andrea Segovia from the Transgender Education Network of Texas joined Monday's battle at the Capitol. Attacks aren't over.
You can't say that because one person did something that's a characteristic or reason to be cruel to trans people.
And tonight, while facts about the Nashville shooting are still surfacing, the Human Rights Campaign says trans people are much more likely to be victims of violence rather than perpetrators. Writing in a statement, regardless of the reason for this shooting, the use of violence is reprehensible, and we renew our call